What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the Buy the Hood podcast or webcast because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host as always. My name is Jimmy. Every show we start with gratitude, and I want to say thank you for those that have already reached out, donated, shared all the information about our upcoming camp this summer. Buy the Hood Ownership Camp is back for a 10th year. Go to buythehoodcamp.com to get more info. But this week's podcast, I'm by myself. I'm doing this solo, but I definitely want to make sure we drop some content. We're about a day late. You know, we say Wednesday drop, but we've been dropping on Thursday. We're not officially changing the date. It's just that trying to get everything prepared for this camp has been very, very time consuming outside of everything else we got going on in life. But definitely want to make sure I drop this episode. This is an interesting article I want to talk about. And let me pull this article up, because this is one I really want to get you guys feedback on. I really want to see how you feel about this. And if you're listening on the audio, shout out to you. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you go give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening, YouTube Podcasts, whatever it may be. Just make sure you take care of us there. And if you're watching the visual, you'll see the article that I am sharing, which comes from Market Watch. And I'll read a little bit of articles so you can get a little bit of context in terms of the conversation I want to have briefly here today. It's from the moneyest section of Market Watch, where people call in for to get advice. This guy says, they think I'm rich because I have a very nice house. My friends order drinks and pricey dishes in restaurants. Is it rude to ask for a separate check? He says, I am comfortable, retired 4 years ago, and I don't drink much alcohol. He says, I go out with various people and they order the most expensive item on the menu, plus appetizers and desserts, in addition to 2 or 3 more drinks. The bill comes and they always want to split the check. It makes me feel awkward, so I always cave in. I stopped going out with some people because of this, but not everyone. They think I'm rich because I have a very nice house. I am not rich, but comfortable, and work my tail off during my working years. Sometimes I suggest cheaper restaurants, but usually I am outvoted. When we go out, they want an experience. Am I the only one with this problem? So, first question is, for those watching or listening, I'd like to know, do you have that problem, right? I got to be very honest and transparent, like I try to do on all of our platforms. I can't stand when people ask for separate checks. It bothers me, but mine comes from a different perspective. I get angry, probably irrationally angry, when I see people over there trying to calculate their bill to the dime or ask for separate checks. Like, I value my time so much that my time is better off spent doing something else as opposed to trying to, break down a bill. Now, with that being said, I don't go out with everybody, right? I only go out with friends where I know that it's okay to just break down a bill. Sometimes I may be getting over, sometimes they may be getting, but it doesn't matter because we are genuinely friends. And a lot of times one of us will just pick up the check, right? And it's not to say that I'm rich at all. I also work my tail off, but it's just one of those things. Like, I don't go out that often, right? So in order for me to go out, first of all, it's going to have to be with close friends or people whose company I enjoy, whose conversation I enjoy. But I understand this man's perspective. If he's trying to kind of like hint at, yo, let's go to this place, and they're trying to pretty much try to take advantage of him because they feel as though he has wealth. Now, that's a little bit of a different scenario. You probably shouldn't just go. Other parts of this article that are interesting to me, but I want to start with that. I want to know, how do you guys feel about that part, and do you deal with any of that? What was interesting in reading this article is they got into a little bit of data, which is my thing. And it says that Market Watch did a report, which says that it is increasingly a habit for the rich in terms of going to dine out, right? John Payton is the CEO of Dine Brands Global, which owns Applebee's and other restaurant chains. And he told investors last month that fewer consumers earning $50,000 a year or less ate out in his restaurants in the prior quarter. So he talks about how consumers are more aggressively managing their check. And what's interesting about this to me is, listening to a lot of podcasts, reading a lot of financial news, people talk about how, and historically speaking, things such as dining out, things such as airplane travel, even things such as college, in the past used to be something that was for people with means. Over time, prices come down, and the average working class family can afford to fly, can afford to eat out, and can afford college, especially when you have student loans. So some will say it's not that prices have come down, but you can borrow. But there's a book. It's called The Price of Tomorrow. Let me see who. I think it's Jeff Booth's book. It's called The Price of Tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it's Jeff Booth that I read. And what he talks about is how, yes, it is Jeff Booth. I read so many books, sometimes I forget the author, but it's by Jeff Booth called The Price of Tomorrow. And what he talks about is over time, the cost of goods should go down to what it costs to produce it. Everything should be becoming, sounds crazy, be becoming. Everything should start to become cheaper as time goes on. Like, whether it's automobiles, whether it's, specific types of foods, things should become cheaper. But the problem is inflation. Because of inflation, things genuinely don't become cheaper. So you have to do something to prepare for inflation in terms of investing or whatever it may be. His book is a Bitcoin book, so you already know where his thesis is. But it's called The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth, if you want to look that up. But what's interesting is when you talk about the history, things seem to be regressing. We always talk about how the next generation should have more than the previous generation. In fact, my brother Corey says, one of the things I've heard him say is, if your kids, your nephews, nieces don't have more than you, or if they don't have more than you, then you did something wrong. And I've also heard someone say that if you're not a little bit jealous of the next generation, then you did something wrong. But the way everything is happening in our world, I don't even want to say our country, from an economic standpoint, because inflation is rampant, money printing is rampant, and people kicking the can and not dealing with the issues today and just like further pushing them, that's something that's happened globally, not just nationally. So another part of this article says, take this research published in American Journal of Sociology. It says that the average millennial has 30% less wealth at 35 than baby boomers had at the same age. And the same is true for retirees. So the way we're moving is the next generation isn't doing as good as we are. In fact, they're doing worse. And this is continuing. And now it's like finding itself into things such as just going out for a burger or going out with friends. And this article just got me thinking about all kinds of stuff. I go on tangents, but it started with this guy complaining about, hey, when I go out with friends, they kind of take advantage of me and want me to split the bill. So my initial reaction was how I feel, like, yo, just split the bill, beloved. But then as I get deeper and deeper into it, it sounds like his friends are taking advantage because they think he has means. And then I get deeper into the article and I'm like, man, people can't even go out to eat no more. It's just really scary. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, because people have accused me of being doom and gloom on a Wednesday show. But I try to talk about, reality. It's not about a salary. It's all about reality. But one of the things that also was interesting to me is this guy's friend's perception of his money, which made me start to think about, how much do I talk to my friends about money? And I realized that as transparent as I try to be in our platforms, and as much as I talk to my friends about investments, or, hey, I'm looking at this investment, I'm looking at this property or this neighborhood, or I'm looking at this stock, or I want to buy more Bitcoin. One of the things we don't really talk about is income, salary, and things of that nature. And I don't know if it's just me and my friends, or that's just something that, that just happens. Like, because I in my head, I'm thinking, like, I do talk to my friends about finances, but I talk to them about investments, and investments aren't finances. I don't talk to my friends about any debt that I may have. I don't talk to my friends about like what kind of like disposable income I have. And I wonder if that's the norm. So other question I pose to you guys, I would love some feedback in the comments, on social, wherever. I love to get feedback from you guys. When it comes to your friends, like in their perception of the money you have, do they think you're poor? Do they think you're rich? Do you guys even talk about income? Or are you like me, where you're willing to talk about investments and ideas, but you just don't generally talk about income? And a lot of it comes from my upbringing, when I really sit down and really think about it, right? I was raised in a place where you didn't brag about things. You didn't talk about things, like, you know what I mean? You couldn't talk about it if you ain't live it, to quote Sean Carter. But you also had to, it was about, not I don't want to say humble, but it was about just like, if you know, there's no need to talk about certain things, and certain things just weren't really talked about. And I don't know if that's a problem. I'm just being honest in terms of how I was raised. So I don't know if that's a problem, because there's a thin line between bragging and inspiring when it comes to talking about money. And it's probably dealing with, like, I have a lot of survivor's remorse in terms of my accomplishments personally. And I talk about that openly, right? Within the last, year, I've been doing tremendous financially, right? In terms of just, like, my personal growth, buying a new home. Just this past week, just got a new car. Don't really carry any debt, no credit card debt or anything like that. So I'm moving in spaces, but it's also hard for me to talk about this with family and friends, because I also don't want to come off as bragging. Because that's not my aim. So it's something I personally deal with. And I know I don't went off on a tangent again, because that's what I do when I come on all of our podcasts. But, because I have an idea, I have a script of what I'm going to talk about. But as I'm talking, my brain is moving and I'm thinking and I'm just expressing myself to you guys. So it's difficult for me sometimes to talk about the things, because I don't want to come off as bragging. And it's not that I'm perfect. I make mistakes financially, even with all the education and hundreds of thousands of dollars I spent in schooling. Still make mistakes, because the thing about finances is most of it isn't about strategy. I always tell you over 90% at this point, 99% of it is psychological and mental. So, I deal with the in your head sometimes. You're like, yo, I work my ass off. I want to treat myself. Knowing you don't care about what you're going to treat yourself to. Who can relate to that? Who can relate to feeling like, yo, I got to treat myself. And then you go do something. And then later you're like, I ain't even want that. You know what I mean? Like, that's a thing. Yeah, so I deal with that as well. I deal with survivors. So, like, I still, even though in my personal opinion, I've already accomplished more in my life than I ever thought, I still deal with money from a psychological standpoint. Side note, the psychology of money, I talked about it on last couple episodes. I've talked about it on Stack Sats or Dot Trying. Shout out to my brother Kamari, who told me it was the greatest finance book ever. Not sure about that, but I have reread the entire book, and it definitely hit different this year reading it than it did in the past. And it probably will be top 5 for me. I'm not ready to say 1 yet, Kamari, if you do watch this, but it probably will be top 5 for me. Just digesting it now and really understanding some of the things because of experience that I probably didn't understand when I first read the book. So psychology is very important as it pertains to money. But this idea of money, family, friends, how you treat money, like you and your house may have one way of looking at money and your friends may not. Your friends may live a YOLO life where they just want to go out and have experiences and all that. How do you deal with that if you're focused on creating a legacy, if you're focused on retirement? Like, I have friends that go out and do things, right, and will honestly and openly tell me, like, yo, I'm never going to be able to retire. And they're okay with that. I'm not okay with that. So I think one of the things about it is just having conversations about money. If these are truly your friends, if they're acquaintances and people you just like to hang out with, that's different. But I feel like a friendship is something different than someone you're cool with, right? If you have a true friendship, you should be able to talk to each other, right? And you should be able to say, yo, that's not in my ministry. I'm focused on retirement. I'm focused on my family. I'm focused on this legacy, and I just don't want to be out doing what I'm doing, right? One of the things about getting older, right? I'm a man in my mid 40s now, just had a birthday. But one of the things about getting older is, and it's funny to me, like, I truly enjoy making my home somewhere I don't want to leave. Like, I spent so much money on my home now because I've put things in place in my home where it's like, yo, I don't really even want to go anywhere. I don't want to go out to eat. I don't want to go out and do this. Like, I love home now. And that sounds like some old man-ish, but yo, I love the crib. The crib is lit. I love being in the crib. You know what I'm saying? I got my big TV. I got all the books I want. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy. My house has become my happy place. And that's wild as I sit back and think about, like, the idea of always wanting to be outside, to be seen, to be in these places. I'm so far removed from that. My home is my happy place. You know what I mean? And, I've invested in that and cultivated that. It's not that something that just happened. It's like, yo, I want to intentionally make my home my happy place. So in order for you to even get me to go out, I'm going to have to. So shout out to my friends that I go out to eat with, especially shout out to my Black Wealth Project friends, because we always go out together. But it's because I love you guys and we have fun. You know what I mean? Shout out to my brother Dev. We travel and do things together, his family, my family, whatever. But, like, for the most part, Y'all ain't get me to come outside, man. I'm chilling. So for those that I do hang out with, you already know what it is. So for me, this article brought up a lot of thoughts. I'm all over the place in this episode, and that's okay though. I just want you guys to give me feedback because just the that balance of friendship, finances, and preparation. I'd like to know how you feel about that. Do you actually talk to your friends about your finances? Are you honest about it? Or are you like me who realized in going through this, like, I don't really talk about finances. I talk about investing, but we don't talk about finances. Are you like me, or do you just don't have those conversations at all? Also, what do you do when your friends are in a place where they're looking to live a different lifestyle than you, where they're not focused on retirement? Or like me, when I have friends who will literally tell me, I don't care about retirement. I'm going to, live it up while I'm here. Do you have friends like that? And if so, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Y'all not even on the same accord, So what happens sometimes with me is there are people that I love dearly, grew up with, love, and we're just in different places financially. So we don't really hang as much. Doesn't mean I love them any less, but it is what it is. So I'd like to get your feedback on some of these topics that we talked about in this episode. Shout out to this to Market Watch and always having a fire, which brings up thoughts. One of the reasons I like this website, and I will share the link to this article, is because they have all the good stuff, the ticker symbols, what's going on in the market, which is such and such earnings, all the good financial stuff. But they really get sometimes, especially this moneyest section, they really get into relationships and money and psychology and money, because this is really the secret sauce, is how to live a balanced life and how to deal with the complexities of relationships as it pertains to your money. Then if you want to get deeper into it, which I really don't want to this episode, if you start going into culturally, historically, and you start talking about Black folks and our relationship with money and our relationship with family and friends and money, it's even deeper. So we can get into that a different episode. We could do like a race and money episode or something like that. But I just really want to have this conversation that was sparked because of this article. Leave me some feedback. Share this episode. Let me know what you think. If you want to look up the camp, buythehoodcamp.com. Camp starts next month, July 6th, completely free. Kids ages 5 and up. For those that have already, reached out, supported. I put a post up yesterday, man, and the Cash App folks sent some bread through, man. And it was like, I say it all the time, right? We don't have the biggest platform, but those that mess with us. I literally put a post up, and within less than 2 minutes, I had people just boom hitting the cash. Let's shout to Diamond Dave, our brother Diamond Dave. He sent a crazy dope contribution, man. But it's like, and all the money that we get goes directly to the youth. What we do, for those that don't know or haven't partake, we do games and we do quizzes and things. And those that get the highest score, we actually give them the money to start their investment portfolio, which is why we now have kids less than 10 years old walking around with an investment portfolio that was started for them coming through the Buy the Hood ownership camp. And that's what I'm talking about, building literate financial soldiers, right? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to teach them how to get rich quick. I'm not trying to sell kids courses. I'm not on here doing none of the nefarious things you see on the internet, but it's really about just pouring into them and making them financially aware. So buythehoodcamp.com. You'll hear me talk about that up until we start, because we want to make sure we can serve as many people as humanly possible. With that being said, love you guys, appreciate you, continue to support us. And, as we always say, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. Game elevates. We'll see you guys in our next episode. Peace.